Ahoy, Captains! This is Uncle Neil. We just released a new version of the game Wolfpack. This version includes the full U-boat interior and some updates to the targeting system. So, get started. I always mark my position on the map where I initially start the game. Now let's go back and explore the back half of the sub. One of the things that they've updated is now that the diesel engines are included in the game, we also have them animated when we run them. At some point in the future we'll have all the starting controls modeled also, so you can use air pressure to get the engine started. But for now we just have it animated. Ain't that a glorious sight? I love me the smell of diesel in the morning. One of the advantages of playing Wolfpack in the training mode or tutorial is that it presents us with 3 target ships that won't react to us. They won't change course, and it gives us the opportunity to work up a solution and then check and see how close we are to what the actual solution should be. This gives you a great way of practicing your measurements, collecting your data, getting all the information you need. Okay, so there's our target ship on the left side of our sub. So you also have a lot of tools in the map. Protractor, this is the sketch tool, which you can draw some lines that won't show up on anybody else's map if you're playing with a group of guys. You'll find that these tools, once you learn to use them, it really makes setting up a solution pretty easy. I know sometimes people get intimidated by the math that's involved, but it's really just basic multiplication and division, anything a handheld calculator can do for you. So I wouldn't really feel too intimidated by it. I've got it down, and if I can do it, you can do it. So the first step in setting up a torpedo attack is always going to be getting in position. With this ship, I want to go ahead and close the range to about 2,000 meters and then change another course, make another course change, and start running more or less parallel to him. So you can see he's going right to left, so we'll head directly towards him, and then we'll go ahead and make another course change to get roughly parallel to him, and then we'll start tracking him, get his speed, his heading, and the range. But while we close the range, let's go ahead and get started IDing this ship. Now, first thing most people check for is the mast arrangement. You can see that this ship has 3 masts and a funnel going from front to back. We can also see that the engine is in the aft, and that the superstructure, the 2 white buildings, they are split. Now that narrows it down some. We can also see that it's got an island in the front and the middle, but it's flush in the back. That's the hull shape. That gets us down to 2. The one we want is the one with the 2 masts between the middle superstructure and the stack. That we will add that to our identified ships list so we can refer to it pretty easily. In an actual game, we would want to make sure we don't get so close that we're detected, so we would probably stay out about 3,000 meters. In this case, though, we can do this for practice, so let's make a course change of about 50 degrees to the left, and that'll get us roughly on a parallel course, maybe still closing slowly. Merchant ships typically go at speeds less than 10 knots, so we can go ahead and reduce our speed so we don't outrun him. This also gives us more time to collect the data we need for our solution. To start charting his position, we need to go down to the attack periscope. We want to get a couple of range and bearing marks down on the map. First step is to get our own course laid out on the map. Now we know that our course is 240, so we'll take the protractor, lay it over our ship, make sure that the 0 indicator is pointing true north, and then we'll draw a line on our course of 240. That's our heading. Now we'll get the information to take our first marking. We're coming up to where we're almost passing him, so we'll slow a little bit more. We're fast enough to hold our position in place. Let's get a range first. Push the E key to bring up the range chart. We want to check the ship's mast height. Both these masts are 35 meters. So we go to our range chart and push the up arrow till we get to the section that indicates 35 meters. Then we'll line up the main line to the ship's water level and see how many tick marks on the left that top mast is. And it looks to be about 6, between 6 and 7, which is a range of about 2,100 meters. Then we can note the relative bearing, which is about 68 to 70 degrees. Go back to our map. Now we want to lay the protractor over our ship and press the space bar to get the protractor lined up with 0 on our course. That allows us to use the protractor to find all the relative bearings around our course, not true north. So since this ship approximately 2,100 meters out on a bearing of about 69, that's our first position. We can mark that on the map. That's where we think the ship was at the time we started taking that position. Periodically, I like to double check the ship's course to make sure that we are going in the direction I think we're going. The helmsman hasn't allowed us to drift. In this case, with the bot playing the game, you know that's not going to happen, but in a real game, you never know. We need to wait a few minutes to get the next ship position marking, so in the meantime, we can go ahead and get the draft of the ship entered into the TDC and start getting a speed estimate. This ship has a draft of 7 meters, so we'll set torpedo depth at 5 and select attack periscope and plug in rough numbers for AOB and range. For the most reliable speed estimate, it's best to have the target at an angle on bow of about 90 degrees and our own speed less than 2 knots, or perfectly still if possible. Depending on the tactical situation, you may or may not be able to come to complete stop. If you're at periscope depth, that shouldn't pose a problem as long as your dive officer knows what he's doing. Alright, we're going slowly enough now to where we can get ready to start. We want to check the length of the ship, which is 124 meters, and time it from the point that it passes that vertical crosshair from the bow to the stern. We start our stopwatch and hold the crosshair still. If you're under a lot of pressure from escorts, you can always measure half the ship's length and then double that number and divide the length of the ship by that doubled number. If you have time though, the most accurate is to go ahead and let the whole ship run. Pull up your calculator, plug in the length of the ship, divide that by the number of seconds, and then multiply that times 1.94 to get the speed of the ship in knots. In this case, it's about 5.8 to 5.9. With this angle of the bow, I'm going to make it a little closer to 5.5, 5.7. And if you have time, you're not under a lot of pressure, getting a second speed estimate really helps you have confidence in what you've come up with. Now we have time to get our second range and bearing position. So we'll check the height of the mast against the tick mark. which is between 5 and 6, really close to 6. So we're going to mark it as 2100 meters again with a bearing of about 63. Again, we take our protractor, making sure zeros line up with our course, pull out the line until we get about 2100 meters at the right bearing, and then mark another position. With 2 position markings, we have a rough idea of the course of the ship. Now, getting more markings will give you a more refined, a better solution. Depending on how much time you have, you may want to get 3 or 4 markings. But for this exercise, we're just going to go with 2. We can lay down a line that shows the course of the ship. Keep in mind, though, that the ship is moving at 5 or 6 knots, so this position is where he was 15-30 seconds ago. Now, to get an approximate angle on the bow, we lay the protractor over the ship's position, hold the space bar, and get the 0 lined up with the ship's heading. Then we can count off the number of degrees from the ship's heading to our sub, which is about 110 degrees on the left side of the ship. We'll set the TDC at angle of bow left 110, double check the range setting, then we'll go ahead and line the crosshairs up on the target to get the bearing input into the TDC and shoot. Our torpedo is on the way. Now, using this training map, we can see how close we are with our target data. We said that the angle on the bow was 110 left and that the speed was about 5.7 to 5.9. Now we can compare our estimate to the true solution. So it appears my speed estimate was about 3/10 of a knot too slow, and my range was about 300 meters short, and the angle on the bow was 133 compared to my 110, keeping in mind that the ship currently is showing a 133 angle on the bow. That angle on the bow was probably somewhat less when I got that second position marking and fired. So this is what I like about the training mode. You can use this to practice setting up shots, using the map tools, getting your estimates, and get better and better at setting up a good target solution. This is really going to help you in the game a lot. It helps me, and I've been doing this for forever. Now that we know the true position of the ship, we can experiment with the tools, line our protractor back up on our course, and extend the line on the bearing of 55 and the known range of about 2,500 meters, and mark the position of the ship. And you can see how accurate this can be if your markings and your estimates are close. And that's about where the ship was 10 seconds ago. Now while we wait, and I hate to do this because it sounds like a broken record on all the YouTube channels you ever go to, it would really help a lot if you could subscribe and click the like button. Please! Okay, back to the target. Waiting to see what happens. Target destroyed, Herr Kalloin. Well, I hope you had as much fun with this video as I did. Actually, I don't like making videos, but it helps people a lot to share that information. I've learned a lot from other players like Colonel Frost and Raptor, Decaf. So if I can learn, I'm going to try to help you learn too, Captain. Well, that's all for now. Good hunting, and don't forget to close the hatch.